Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast, here with Jessica Bunbun, and this is our House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 5 reaction and review. Listen, not every episode can be Rook's Rest. Not every episode is going to feature an epic dragon battle in the skies,
hmm
but rest assured, we still got a good episode here. I still feel like this is a step above the start of the season. We are moving in a good trajectory. There are things that are happening. There are people betraying each other potentially.
yeah, we'll need to talk about Daemon and this side quest that's going on. It feels like we've got like this whole show going on. Everybody's like getting ready and battling or whatever, and then Daemon's just lost over here in his own thoughts, doing strange things with his mom and figuring out, that he's getting all gassed up to be the king. It's such a strange, odd storyline, and I feel like as interesting as it was, now it's starting to feel like it is going on too long and it needs to kind of get wrapped up.
I'm trying to compile this list in my head of various Game of Thrones franchise things that I wish I didn't know existed. I feel like Daemon and his mom has officially gone on to that top five. I didn't know what was going on at first, and then once I did know what was going on, I wished I could go back in time to when I didn't.
Yeah, we all felt like we could just, pluck our eyes out after that, but I mean, this is Game of Thrones and this is the Targaryens, so this is the type of thoughts they're going to have.
Yeah, it's a very messed up world here, clearly, but I think really the biggest takeaway I have coming out of this episode is that while Team Green, they're finding a way to withstand what's going on with Aegon, who is, of course, not dead. I'm sure everybody out there is just supremely shocked by that.
Yep.
Team Black is the biggest hot mess of all time. Nothing is working out in their favor. They have no real advantages. The Starks are out in the wind. Who knows what's going to happen there eventually?
Yeah, Team Green is taking some wins right now, and now it's also King Aemon, which I think is not really surprising, considering that he is next in line at this point. If his brother is indisposed, he's going to be the person who's going to step up. I mean, I'll just say this quickly before we
All right.
get into further discussion here. Kristen Cole, you made a really good point of why
Oh,
why Eamon needs to be the person in charge right now, and we'll get into why, but his reasoning for it, I was like, yeah, that actually seems sound.
you know that meme that's like, oh no, the worst person you know just made a really good
Right.
point? I feel
Yes.
like that is Kristen Cole
Yeah.
in this episode. Okay, we have so much more to get into here. Of course, hit that subscribe button. Great way to make sure you don't miss any other updates coming up, and smash that like button as well.
Also, join us over on our Patreon for just $5. You can help support us
Yes.
here at the channel to continue to bring you guys all these videos. And you get to be able to vote on other shows that we will be doing here. And you get to help choose what we're going to be covering here at the channel. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined our Patreon. It really helps us.
Okay, let's just start off here with the Game of Thrones, both literally and figuratively, that are going on here at King's Landing. Because this episode begins, Cole may have had some good ideas, but he also had an absolutely terrible idea of, hey, let's parade the dragon head
Terrible.
around the town. Which, by the way, I know the dragons are fictional. It was still appalling to have to watch that. I did not like it one bit. And not everybody is like you, Kristen Cole. They think these dragons are fancy and special and mythical. Nobody wants to be told that, their mythical creature can die. That's not fun. That's not exciting.
Yeah, like I get the idea behind it. That's like, okay, our king is down, so we have to show that, he's still strong, that it's not just the king is down and, we've lost this and lost that. We have to show that we're coming home with a win to be like, okay, yeah, maybe our king is down, but look at what he did while he was going down, oh, King Aegon. It's just like, but it didn't go over the way that they thought. It was just a lead balloon. Now everybody is even more scared. The sea snake is like cut off all trade. Everybody in town is, doing quite badly. They can't get food in and now they can't get out. Like things are just, they're getting really scared watching this dragon head go through town. It's just a bad omen. Everybody's just feeling really bad.
Another piece of advice here from me, not that I know better, obviously, than the hand of the king, but I just feel like if you are going to parade around the street and be like, look what King Aegon did, shouldn't King Aegon actually be there? The fact that Aegon, we all know where Aegon really is in all of
Yes.
this, but the idea that you're boasting about this king's accomplishments and the king is not even there to be a part of it, it really does deflate what little credibility you were trying to build with this in the first place, Kristen.
So Egon's doing very badly.
Yes.
Obviously, we've seen that. We saw even the scene where he was by himself, and as Alicent left, he called out to his mommy, which was really heartbreaking. I mean, Egon's not my favorite character. He's a terrible person, but even the most terrible people have these moments where I'm just like, oh,
Mhm.
my heart is going out. You are burnt to a crisp. You're calling for your mommy. You're a grown man at this point. Your son has been killed. Like
Yeah.
he's taking L after L after L. Do we feel bad for him? No, but in that moment, I was just like, oh, I feel a little bit bad for him. But what was kind of interesting was to see his face and
Mhm.
see that one of his eyes is like burnt shut. And we know that his brother obviously has an eye patch. He's lost his eye as well. And if you think back to Viserys, when his body was falling apart by the end of his life, he actually was missing an eye as well. Like the men in this family are all losing their eyes.
It's so bizarre because they're crafting this physical similarity between these three men, and really, all three of these men are incredibly different from each other. Where,
Very.
Viserys was pretty well reasoned, he was a peacetime king. I don't think he would have fared that well in battle, as opposed to someone like Aemond, who may be a little bit impulsive and emotional at times, but is
Yes.
definitely the most capable of the three. And then you have Aegon, who has just had a terrible lot in life in a lot of ways, but has also found a way to make his lot in life significantly worse at just about every single turn. So
Yeah.
it's fun that these three characters are all so different from each other, all kind of sort of befall a little bit of the same fate. And
Mhm.
for Aegon, who has always felt like, okay, my dad didn't want me, I'm going to prove myself. He's basically now in this spot where he has to sit back and watch everybody do everything for him. Like that has to be driving him up the wall.
Yeah, and is he ever going to recover from this? I mean, I don't know, man. It was looking pretty bleak. It was grim watching them peel that armor
Yeah.
off of him. Like, I don't think he's going to recover.
Who's really broken up about everything that's going on here. It's your guy Aemond, who is basically looking at his brother and then looking at everybody else and then saying, well, anyways, let's talk more about what we're gonna do in terms of military strategy. Aemond, he don't have any sympathy for you, probably because he did this on purpose,
Yes.
probably because he wanted to be king.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of makes sense. Like, yes, this is happening to his brother. He did this to his brother. But the battle is going to keep on waging, and he's got to get into a spot and get everyone together to be like, okay, we got to get on the back of this and move forward into what our next step is. That's why it was so interesting to see everybody at that table, to see all the Greens sitting around being like, okay, well, who's going to be stepping up in his place? Alicent being like, well, it should obviously be me because when Viserys was down, I did that job and, I did that job well. And it's like, okay, I understand that, but it was a completely different time. It was a peaceful time when nothing was happening. It's one thing to be taking over a company where everything is running smoothly. And it's another thing to be taking over a company that's like bleeding money and employees are leaving and the building's burning to the
Yeah.
ground. It's not the same. And it's also, of course, getting some karma here because she knows that Rhaenys was also in this position. She got passed over for Viserys. And then Rhaenyra, who was someone that Alicent was championing for a long time to be like, yes, you're going to be the queen. You're going to be a fine queen. She stood up to her dad about it. No, Rhaenyra's going to be the queen all the way until this last night with Viserys. But same thing is happening, right? She put it in place that Rhaenyra was going to be passed over for a man. So by the time she's sitting there and they're just like, yeah, you're a woman, you're not going to be in this spot. it's kind of like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you participated in doing this to another woman, and now you're the woman that's having this happen to. And, she's looking to these two men beside her, where it's like, she's hooking up with Kristen Cole, she's doing feet stuff with Laris, and both of them are like, yeah, you're not the person for the job. And, she felt very betrayed by that. But it's like, your personal life and your business life doesn't have to mix that way. There's an heir sitting at the table and you're going to be like, it should be me. That doesn't make any sense.
This may be my favorite scene in the whole episode, though, just because everybody on Team Green, I may not be Team Green, but the people who are on Team Green are all enormously compelling and weird and twisted in their own ways. There was a part of me that felt like Laris would want to support Alicent because he knows that she thinks a little bit similarly to him. But I think at the same time, he is smart enough to sort of see the bigger picture and realize that politically,
Yes.
this is not something that would work out. It might work out for like 5 seconds with him, but if he wants to figure out ways to kind of pull strings and manipulate the system, he's going to have to figure out a way to do it with somebody else. And for Alicent, do I need to bring back Lamorne Morris's character in Fargo to tell you the consequences? They're coming, and they have come for you. At this point, I would feel bad for you that everything this season has gone terribly, were it not for everything that you did in the past, regardless of what you believed King Viserys was saying. You should have figured out some other sort of way, because you are here now. Otto is gone. Nobody is listening to you. Nobody has any incentive to want to put you on the throne, especially since Aemond is sitting right there. Aemond has wanted to be king ever since he could talk. His first word was probably king. Like, this is somebody who really has prepared himself in every way for this. I'm not saying he's going to be a great, perfect king, but he's going to be a good king. He's probably going to be a better king than Aegon ever was.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously making some mistakes by locking everybody in, but it was interesting that while they were, zooming in on Alicent and she's like stuck in her mind, you could hear Aemon taking control in a way that needed to be taken control, where he was just like, okay, the people want to leave, I understand, but we need to keep them and then we need to fix it. So we're gonna, lock them in. They're gonna hate that. Oh, well, we got to deal with the sea snake. Yes, we do have to deal with that. We have to break up that blockade so we can bring in food, so people will get food and everyone will be fine and we'll figure it out. Like, he was just like on it strategically, being like, okay, yeah, we got to deal with this. We got to send people over here. We got to deal with the blockade. And like, I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, this is the first king that we've seen on the show so far that's like on it with everything that he knows needs to happen. All those rat catchers, they all need to come down. Like, let's button it up.
The rat catcher line, I think, is so unbelievably important because it
Yes.
connects to what's going on with Rhaenyra over in my beloved Team Black, where we are seeing this situation now where, congratulations, Team Green, you are ruling over King's Landing, but your people are miserable. Nobody wants to live this way, where you've got the rat catchers just like,
Right.
hanging up for everybody to see. You're going to get to this position where eventually the people are going to turn against you, because they're going to
Yep.
be like, you know what? Life wasn't so bad when Viserys was king. Hey, Rhaenyra, that's his daughter. She's probably a little bit like him, right? Granted, they don't always have the most, military fortitude, the common folk, but you want to at least have them in your favor.
Well, you also unfortunately have this thing attached to her now with Jaehaerys being killed, right? Like, that's kind of the problem with both sides at this point. Yeah, Aegon did the thing with the rat catchers. Now we've got Aemon, he's locking people in. And then there's the rumors around what Rhaenyra did to this toddler, that she's not going to be able to wash that stink away. Like, everybody's got problems, but it's
Yes.
sort of like, who has the least amount of problems. And we all know that she didn't do it, but it doesn't matter. It's what people believe, and that was something that the White Worm was talking about. It's about rumors and what people believe, and can you bend people's ear to believe it. And that's why we're going to talk about Kristen Cole here for a second before we leave Team Green, because like I said, I hate to say it, but he had a really good point with this where Allison was like, "Hey, yo, like why didn't you back me? Like you know that I've done a good job in the past with this. You know, we're together, you only, showing up at night, but during the day you don't know me. Like what's going on?" And his point was like, listen, I was out there. I had, a really strong group of men out there on the ground, but this fight is in the sky. And without having someone leading us who is an experienced dragon rider, none of us can really win this. It has to be somebody who knows the skies. That's not me. That's not you. It's just Aemon. He's the only person that we have that's doing that.
This is a story. I mean, dragon is in the title. I don't
Right.
think I'm not blowing anybody's mind here when I'm just like, dragons are one of the most important things at the heart of the show. It's what we'll talk about a lot moving into our preview for the next episode. It
Mhm.
just feels like you do need someone in charge who knows and understands dragons, and Aemon is good for that. He may not be perfect in every way, but he is very accomplished. He's somebody who at least understands that there's a social quality to leading, and we'll see kind of sort of where that goes.
Okay, speaking of leading, let's go over to Luigi's castle over here, where we've got Daemon in here still running around, talking to himself, having these visions of him and his mom. Like, it's just so crazy. So, I've said this in a past video, and I'll put my
Yeah.
tinfoil hat back on for this video, is that I think that Alice has had instruction from Laris on keeping, not only just keeping Daemon busy over there because it weakens Rhaenyra, but now it's like very purposefully like gassing him up to be like, yeah, you're the heir, you're the king, you're the person who should have been king, and you should be king now. You're the true heir, sort of thing. He's like, yeah, I'm the king. Everybody got to call me the king. You can't call me Grace anymore. You got to call me, the king. Yeah, Rhaenyra can come along as my queen, but I'm going to be the king. And to get him to that point, if Alice is pulling the strings, whether the motivation is for herself, which I don't know what it would be for herself, like we've just met her, so we don't really know, or Laris being like, hey, can you start gassing him up so that he then is split from Rhaenyra in a very real way, where now they're going to be battling each other to be able to then be the last person standing to then battle the Greens. But by then, both of those sides are weakened. And then Team Black is pulled apart.
I'm so frustrated by this story. It feels like it's one thing to have palace intrigue and debate over who is going to be in charge, who's leading the way. But you know who's doing that really well at this point? Team Green. Like that storyline is great. And the reason that storyline is great is because everyone is in the same spot. We can see them actually go head to head and see Alicent get completely just shown the door time and time again. But Daemon, he's off by himself with
Chopping wood. He's got the Dexter ending.
yeah, he's got the Dexter ending. He's with a bunch of people who I do not care about at all. The only
No.
part of this I found kind of funny was them basically telling Daemon, "Oh yeah, we don't have any money. Laris has all the money." And thinking, well, this is the sorriest place known to mankind. They don't have any money. Congratulations, you have a castle. You have somebody who is seemingly trying to manipulate you. The whole thing with his mom, like just the outside of just like the ick factor of it, it didn't need to be there for me. It just feels
No.
like we already know what the Targaryen family is. We already know their history. It felt very superfluous that it was just there to get a rise out of us. And this storyline is dragging just because it feels kind of like, okay, we want to manufacture some conflict between Daemon and Rhaenyra. I understand that Daemon was passed over. I understand that it's probably taking a long time for him to get over that, but he's also had a long time to deal with not being king in one way or another. I just feel like at a certain point, he's got to remember, oh, there's this big conflict going on all over Westeros, and here I am in my little Barbie dream house, just doing my own thing, not really caring about anything else that's going on. It feels less and less like the Daemon I know from season one.
It's also interesting that Matt Smith has just played this part over on The Crown with Prince Philip, where it was sort of the same thing, where it was like the queen, and then he's sort of the prince on the side.
Yeah.
But yeah, him and what's going on over there. I mean, it was really interesting to see too that he is trying to build people that will come and fight for him. To watch them all show up in the middle of the night, where he's like, "Why would you get a king out of my bed?" And it's like, we're here to tell you that we would rather die than bend the knee to a tyrant like you. Like, there's no way. Which is ties all back to the beginning, where it was like Viserys was worried about Daemon being on the throne because Daemon was going to be a tyrant, and he's unpredictable and he can do things that are quite cruel. So that's why he named Rhaenyra. That is why he got passed over. And then here he is in Harrenhal doing that.
I also just don't care fundamentally about this whole Blackwoods and the Brackens. It's just
I
like
do not care at
I
all.
I understand that these two houses do not like each other. That's fine. I do not have any investment in either one of them. I do not have this big history of them from Game of Thrones where they're front of mind. I want to talk instead about people who I do really like right now, who I do really care about. And this brings me to the MVP of this episode, and maybe the MVP, at least for me as a biased Team Black fanboy, of the first 5 episodes, and that is my guy, Jace. Look at you, Jace. You really are the prince who was promised, even though your name is not Aegon. You, in this episode, sure, you don't tell your mom what you're doing, but you go to the twins. You have this idea that's just sort of like, okay, I'm gonna figure out a way to make something happen. And look at you. You do. You're making deals. You're talking smart. Maybe you're in a little bit too much for what you're actually able to give them, but you're really trying something. Jace just seems to have his head on really straight, which is phenomenal given everything that this guy has been through.
He's a character that I truly just haven't cared about. And it's not because he's Team Black or Team Green
Mm,
or whatever. They just haven't really given him anything of consequence to do, which is something that he even said in this episode too, where he was just like, I'm just sitting around being protected. And she's like, yeah, you're the heir. But I mean, you forget that what? You have like 4 sons. Like, you have a pile of sons. If something happens to Jace, which, obviously she doesn't want to have happen, you have like 3 other heirs that will be able to step up. I know they're young now, but she will be able to deal with it if Jace isn't there. Like, you have to let him be able to go out and prove himself, so that if he is the heir and he does move into that spot, he is someone that is building a reputation for himself so that people want to get behind him. And going and dealing with the phrase, I mean, like, oh my God, the phrase. It always comes down to this crossing every
yeah.
single time. It happened with the Red Wedding. It's all down to the phrase that they really decide everything in the realm. But he felt like he made a fairly good deal with them. They want Harrenhal. Why does everybody want this damn castle? I don't know, man.
No.
But they want it. And he was like, okay, we'll get that for you, but bend the knee.
Yeah, it's as good of a deal as he could muster at that point. Also, you could overpromise a little bit to the phrase. Yes, sure, they're capable of the Red Wedding, but that's down the road. You guys don't know that. You can overpromise the phrase a little bit, and if you don't deliver on everything you promise, what are they gonna do at that point? They're not gonna stage another Red Wedding in advance. You can figure that out down the road. It just every time we have seen Jace away from the rest of his family, he's doing stuff. He's showing that he is capable. He did a good job with Cregan Stark. And yes, I understand that Cregan Stark is disappeared just like Rickon Stark disappeared for the majority of Game of Thrones.
Listen, it takes a while to get things together. At least they're not just kind of teleporting all over the
No,
place.
it's true. It's true. But ultimately, though, we've seen that this character is capable and that his mom ultimately should trust him and trust that he has pretty good judgment. And it
Yeah.
was a very interesting scene for the two of them at the end where there is this part of her that is maybe a little bit frustrated that he's gone and done all this stuff without her knowing about it. But she also has this realization that's okay, you can really do this. I'm happy about this. I have an element of pride because what else am I gonna do? I got Daemon, who is still also sulking because Rhaenyra sent him away in the first place, and you have Sir Alfred, who also just sucks, but you gave him orders to go and deal with Daemon, so have fun with that, Sir Alfred.
Yeah, her council is a shambles. Like they're saying that they're there for her, but they just don't want her to participate anything. That storyline has been going on, and I felt Rhaenyra's own frustration with my frustration with Rhaenyra's storyline, where it feels like every episode I'm just going in circles with her while she's walking around the castle being like, I have nothing to do.
Yeah,
They won't let me participate. I can't get anyone to listen to me. And I'm just like, yeah, this has been going on like every single episode. Like it's
yeah.
time to shake things up. And they come up with this idea that feels like a pretty terrible idea where they're like, oh, we need more dragons, but we don't have enough Targaryen dragon riders. So what are we going to do about it? Oh, we'll find somebody that is like 1/8 Targaryen and get them to claim some of these unclaimed dragons. And I'm just sitting back being like, oh no. We've seen people who are inexperienced riders riding with their dragons getting killed like Luke, where the dragons just end up taking over and doing whatever they want. And because we saw Luke can control his dragon, Aemon can control his dragon, these dragons ended up in a fight in the air, and both the riders are just like, oh no, right? So what? You're going to bring in two people that are not full Targaryen that are going to come in and get on these dragons, and then what? You're just sending them in to die? Like, this is the battle of the dragons, and at this point it would be that the dragons are then just deciding to do whatever it is that they want to do. You don't just get on a dragon and then you just miraculously know how to ride it. It takes experience and time.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. I'm not gonna sit here and defend this plan as a great plan. It is a terrible plan, but it is just also when you don't have a lot of options, when Daemon is sulking, when you don't have a lot of other just manpower and the way that Team Green does, you have to sort of think a little bit outside the box. And
Yeah.
there are some interesting options that are out there in terms of where they kind of sort of want to go with this. Like it's easy to say, okay, well, why don't they just get Rhaena? She's just off in the Eyrie. We saw a little bit of her in this episode where she's having to justify, these tiny dragons, they'll protect you guys. It'll be fine. Who cares if it's going to take years for them to actually get to this point? But, she has a different sort of mission. You can't really bring her over. So it's going to be a fun sort of little search here to see how Team Black figures this out. I think there's a chance just because one dragon basically equals thousands of just normies that you're going to send out there onto the field.
Yeah.
All right. Want to give a quick little shout out here to Corlys, who is going through it.
Oh, him crying on his throne. It just broke me apart.
Yeah, Corlys is, he's a magnificent character.
Yeah.
Steve Toussaint's a great actor. And I
Yes.
just think his whole scene in this episode where he's sort of realizing not just because he lost Rhaenys, but how many people he's lost in general. We just think about it over time here. Laenor, who knows if we ever see him again. We know what happened to Laena, Rhaenys. Then there's also the fact that Bela is basically in this episode saying, I am fire and blood. I am not, salt and sea. I think that's what she says. But
Yeah, she's like, I'm not the person that's going to be taking over the ship, so move it along.
yeah, it's just like you don't even have her. You don't even have your granddaughter in this. And so what do you have, Corlys? It's just he's a very smart, intelligent guy. It's no surprise that Rhaenyra wants to bring him in to have a pretty significant role in all of this. But I also understand why he, at this point, is like, yeah, I'm not really thinking so much about the honor. I'm just thinking more in terms of every time I do stuff with you guys, something terrible seems to happen.
Yeah, for sure. It was nice to see him pull out, the hand pin and, wrap his hand around it. Like it seems like he's going to accept it at this point. But, she needs different counsel around her. Rhaenyra's counsel is just not working out for her. They just seemingly keep wanting to put her in a corner. If she doesn't have, Rhaenys anymore, just get Jace up there on your council in a bigger way. He's proven himself. He can negotiate. He's negotiated some pretty good terms for you. Put him on the council in a much more significant role. And then, yeah, have Corlys come over, be your hand. Like, start bringing in people who are are going to help gas you up to make good decisions instead of just tell you how it's going to be.
It's time to start playing some offense, guys. You guys have been playing defense, and I will take off my Team Black biased cap here, and I'll just say these past few weeks, it feels like Team Green stories have been about a 9 out of 10, and the Team Black stories have been about a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, and I think part of it is exactly what you said. Team Green is all together and
Yes.
they're all playing off each other and they're all like, I'm Team Green, but my team is Team Trashy and Messy. Like, we have like Laris the Foot Guy and Sir Kristen Cole
Yeah.
is, the
Real
most
motley
hated man.
crew.
Yeah, I have a real motley crew of people, but every person that's there is really interesting. And we've spent a lot of time, especially this season, with each of these characters to get to know them and learn like how devious they are, how smart they are, how strategic they are. Like, we're just so deep in with everybody who's a part of that council, where it was like, even with this episode in Rhaenyra's council, I was like, who is this guy? Like, I don't even remember anymore. You're sending him off to go talk to Daemon. I'm like, I don't even care who you are. I haven't been bothered to learn your name.
I only learned his name in this episode. I'm not going to sit here
You
and
know
be
what
on
I
a high
mean?
horse and be
She
like,
she just needs to have more screen time,
yeah,
if I'm calling her council. She needs a good council, that meaning like, obviously good people that are around her, but more interesting people. That's always been my problem with like Luke and Jace, and everybody's just very like, we're the good guys, we're fit into the good guy box. But it's like, okay, well, what else are you? Like, do you have anything else that's going on? And they haven't spent enough time with them to show us anything else about them. That's why this is a big Jace episode for me, where I'm like, okay, this kid has something else. He's got some chops. He's willing to put himself out there and do the thing. Like, okay,
yeah.
put him on the council in a bigger role.
Come on, Rhaenyra. Just get it together. Daemon and your mommy issues. Get it
Oh
together.
my
All right.
goodness. Bring him home. It's enough is enough.
Yeah.
Stop playing king and come home.
Yeah. Really. Seriously. Okay. All right. That's what we got on episode 5. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other coverage here. Also, support us further by joining our Patreon. We have a link in the description. Just $5 is a great way to help us to continue to do these videos we love to do for you. And we'll see you here next time.